So I just finished my 2 release shows in Woodward and in Ada, and my album is finally out. You can find that on Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes and all that good stuff. I want to thank everybody that's bought an album so far. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to go take a listen to that and let me know what you think, please do. I have that secret show coming up. Probably, it's looking like late April, more than likely, just because I've been so busy and there's so much going on. But now that the release is out of the way and my life has calmed down a little bit, I figured I'd sit down and record a bit telling you about the album and how it came to be. So the name Kauri, a lot of people are really confused about that, and basically, as some of you might have already read through like the paper here in town and whatnot, I was having a hard time finding a new band name after the last band that I had. And I knew I wasn't satisfied with the last band name that I had after I had chosen it, so I was really kind of obsessing over it because I knew that once I had it and I didn't like it, it would just go downhill from there and it would be really irritating to change. So I obsessed over it for a few days, more like a few months, and I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it, and finally I decided to basically just run through a random word generator and just start slapping stuff together. I heard Post Malone just put his last name into a word generator, and so I just started like throwing random names into random words into a word generator and seeing what it could come up with. And one of them was one of the words I saw was Kauri, Kauri. And I saw it first, and I was like, Kauri, whatever. It just looked good. The letters together on a computer screen, to me, looked good. And so, I'll go with that. That's all I thought. And so I went with it, and then I threw around a bunch of other names in the meantime because people didn't really have the best reception to Kauri. I tossed around things like Winter Run or, I don't know. I don't remember any of the rest of them. But anyway, so I tossed around a crap load of names, and then I went to my friends and had them, try and help me decide which one was best. A lot of them didn't like Kauri very much, so I decided to scrap that one, and I was going to go with other names. But then I just kept coming back to that. Like, I would think of other band names, and I just kept coming back to the word Kauri and how much that sort of, it was a word I'd never heard before. You can't have any negative connotations to a word that, you've never heard before. And so I knew that since it was basically, for me, a made-up word, people would just see it and associate that immediately with my music and my band. And so I was like, I don't really have much of a choice to go with anything else. I just kept coming back to it, and it kept ringing in my head as the name that I should be going with. So I went to Reddit, and I typed out a bunch of names on Reddit. Like 8 options that I had been tossing around at the time, with Kauri somewhere in the middle, because in my mind that was kind of my preference. But I didn't want to be biased toward the word Kauri. I wanted it to be, kind of hidden in there so that maybe if that's what other people felt would be a good name, then they would let me know. And it turns out everyone on Reddit, We Are the Music Makers, thank you, by the way, they helped me decide on Kauri permanently. And this is already like 4 months into the process of picking a name. So I looked it up. And, I figured if somebody else has this band name, I obviously can't pick it. So I looked it up, and turns out it is the indigenous people of New Zealand worship a coniferous New Zealand tree called the Kauri. Those people are called the Maori. It's partly what the story of Moana and Maui was based on, was their culture. And I saw a bunch of videos of people, basically anytime I looked up on YouTube the word Kauri, it was a bunch of people advocating for the correct pronunciation of the word in most Maori words. And so I got myself in kind of a sticky situation because I had already committed to that name. I'd already named, certain websites that I'd already registered domains and whatnot. I was like, this is kind of a sensitive thing, so I have to learn how to pronounce it, because I don't want to be pissing anybody off. So I looked it up on YouTube and I made sure that I knew how to pronounce it, and it is Kauri. It is phonetically spelled Kouree with an R like a soft D in Spanish. It's a Kauri. And so that's how I'm going to pronounce it. Like I've said to many people, if you'd like to pronounce it some other way, Kauri, Kauri, whatever, I don't care. If you want to pronounce it that way, I'm totally okay with that. But the word Kauri is a Maori word, now I know, for a sacred tree that they revere. So, the name is Kauri. You can call me Carrie if you want. But that is the story of how I came to choose the name. For me, I enjoy it just because it doesn't have any associations like I mentioned earlier. It's a word that for most English-speaking people, obviously unless you're from New Zealand, it has no meaning. And so for me, I liked that it would be the meaning would be attributed directly to my music without any other connotations, whether bad or good. So that is the name, Kauri, and for better or for worse, I'm sticking to it because I've already bought the domain name. So the name is Kauri, and that's the story as to how I chose it. Thanks, guys. You have a good one.